Spoilers ahead. What if you were trapped in an endless loop where reality bends and breaks around you, leaving you questioning your sanity at every turn? Well, we're diving into that today as we explore the full story of Reveil. Reveil pulls us into its twisted narrative right from the start. We begin in a nightmarish red area where objects float around us. For now, they seem rather random. It's unsettling, to say the very least. As we approach a strange structure with a winged figure atop, we're suddenly whisked away onto a ride, like something out of a haunted amusement park. The show sets we pass are dark, foreboding, and they set the tone perfectly for the nightmare that's about to unfold. The ride ends as we fade to black, coming face to face with a tall, imposing, house-like structure. This is where we meet our main character, Walter Thompson, who wakes up with a pounding headache. It's a rough start for Walter and for us because as we begin to explore his home, it becomes clear that something's terribly wrong. The house, it feels lived in, but there are telltale signs of chaos and neglect. Medication is scattered everywhere, clothes are strewn about, and plants are left to decay. After solving our first puzzle, we unlock the door and step into the hallway. Here, we're greeted by the unsettling sound of machinery.
What was that? An earthquake?
Something Walter initially mistakes for an earthquake. Remember this detail. It's gonna come back later, and it's gonna blow your mind. As we explore, we notice a piece of paper on a desk near an old-school landline phone. Remember those? You couldn't be on the internet at the same time you were on the phone? It's marked with days without calls, 73 days to be exact. The isolation Walter must have felt starts to sink in. Coupled with the scattered meds, the disordered house, and that splitting headache, it's clear something is off. You can almost feel the loneliness creeping in, can't you? We move down a creepy hallway, passing by a painting that seems to represent Walter and his family. 3 candles are placed before it, but only one is lit. A subtle but telling sign that not all is well in this household. In the living room, a record player softly plays a song, adding to the eerie atmosphere.
Martha really likes them. We have different tastes.
I took my time here, trying to soak in the environment, to piece together who this family was and what might have happened. It's here that we learn that Walter's wife, Martha, and their daughter, Dory, were circus performers, which ties in neatly with the game's opening sequence. There are also bottles of alcohol lying around, and a letter mentioning that Dory isn't doing too well in school, a small but significant detail that adds to the unease and gives us insight into what's going on. Heading downstairs to find Dory, that same mechanical rumbling that we heard from before makes another appearance. And then another unhinged and strange thing happens. We see a bottle labeled degreaser, but when we go to inspect it, it quickly changes to paint thinner. It's unsettling, almost as if reality itself is shifting around us. When we finally reach Dory's circus-themed room, she's nowhere to be found. Instead, we're left with the task of breaking in to our daughter's diary. After a few puzzles, we unlock Dory's diary, and it's not what most parents would hope to find. Her drawings start off innocent enough, happy moments with her family, joining the circus, but then they take a dark turn. We see headless teddy bears, depictions of her parents fighting, and an increasingly sinister version of the circus. Then the pages begin to darken around the edges, filled with monsters, bizarre buildings, and images of Dory looking possessed. The final pages are marked with an eye and blood splatters before the book slams shut. When we turn around, an opening has appeared where a wall once stood. Confused and ambivalent, Walter steps outside, believing it all to be some sort of dream. We follow a trail through the woodlands, and soon we hear Dory. Naturally, we follow her to the circus, taking in sights, revisiting old memories, solving a few puzzles, and even playing an arcade game before entering the funhouse. As we make our way through the funhouse, the atmosphere steadily devolves into a nightmare. The music distorts, balloons float into our faces, spelling out DIE, and Walter finally snaps, telling Dory that he's serious and it's time to stop.
Dory, I'm serious. That's enough.
But Dory, giggling, scurries away anyway. We follow her deeper into the madness, where optical illusions bend our mind and the rooms change around us without warning. I mean, this place is really playing tricks on us. What is up is down, and what's real is, well, who knows. Our descent into insanity continues, leading us into a Chinese-themed area that feels oddly familiar to Walter. The signs might be in Chinese or Japanese, honestly it's hard to tell, but the vibe is distinctly Chinese, so we'll go with that. We then enter an elevator, and it's almost like we're descending down into hell, and there we're greeted by flashing lights and shadowy figures that definitely won't pop up behind us as soon as we get to the end of the hallway, as well as hearing an ominous hum that reminds me of the indie horror game Flathead. As we navigate through this shadowy maze, doors spasm open and shut, adding to the chaos. At the end of the Hall of Doors, we find a room where a speaker begins to narrate Walter's origins. Here, we're given a choice between 3 doors that align with his life's story, but if we choose wrong, we're sent back to the beginning. The speaker reveals that Walter and Martha met and fell in love in the circus, got married, and had Dory. But by the 3rd iteration, the room turns blood crimson red, and the speaker ominously mentions how money strained their relationship, leading to an inevitable end.
Led to an inevitable end.
Inevitable?
Attempting to descend down an infinite staircase, we realize the only way through is behind us, but as we turn around, Dory is there, and she slams the door in our face. The next area is a circus show set, complete with what appears to be fire and explosions. It's hard not to wonder if somebody burned down or blew up the circus. We get lost in a labyrinth of funhouse mirrors, chasing Dory but only seeking deeper into the madness. The game loves to mess with us, setting up statues that seem to follow our every move and implementing eyes that gaze at us, giving us the eerie feeling of being watched. Then we stumble upon an area with impossible architecture, staircases and windows in odd places that don't seem to belong. It's disorienting. But we come to a window with a red light and a sign that looks like it says Mo something. But before we can make it out, the window slams shut. Moving through this infinite loop, we hear auditory flashbacks of conversations with Dory, and as we walk up a wall, we suddenly fall through a door. Zohan from the fortune game machine towers above us, spewing cryptic and foretelling dialogue, urging us to seek the truth. A confused Walter walks through a doorway bathed in a bright red light, begging to awaken from this horrific dream. A distorted, far-off ringing finally wakes us up, but we're not in our room. We're in a small, red, ethereal apartment suspended in some kind of otherworldly realm. Familiar objects float around us, and the sign we saw earlier, Moat, is visible again. The architecture is still reminiscent of the Chinese-themed area we encountered earlier, and stepping outside, we find ourselves on a street that feels eerily similar to the one we just walked through in the funhouse. There's a shop with TVs that have menacing eyes staring back at us and a sign reading Chinatown, confirming our earlier suspicions. Floating in the middle of the street is a telephone booth, the source of the ringing. But as we approach, a blinding light engulfs us and we reawaken in our room. After taking more medication, we leave the room once again, searching for Dory and Martha. Back at the desk, the paper that counted the days without calls now shows it's been about 5 months, with a note asking, "What is happening?" This could lead us to believe that Walter is experiencing the psychological torment of extended isolation. Can you imagine being alone for that long? As we explore the house further, we notice more bottles of alcohol lying around, and things seem to be in even greater disarray. Artwork has been moved, furniture seems to have been rearranged. Everything is the same, yet everything is different. One major detail that stands out is that Walter notices that a wall that was once there is now gone, replaced by a hallway leading up to a dilapidated bathroom. The place is an absolute mess. It's like a garbage bomb went off. Pizza, pills, alcohol litter the room, leaving almost no surface untouched. In the chaos, we spot two notable prescription pills. Paroxetine, a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor used to treat mental health disorders like depression, PTSD, and OCD, and naproxen, a pain med for conditions like arthritis and tendinitis. All these items, in this context, tell a story. Reaching into the water-filled bathtub to take our pills, Dory suddenly pops out from under the water, startling us. We fall to the ground, and when we look back up, she's gone. And then we hear her giggling. Turning around, we see her sitting on the bathroom sink for a moment before disappearing again. As we leave the bathroom and begin to head up a set of stairs, blood begins to drip from the ceiling, down the walls, and through the door leading to Martha's art room. In the bright, unsettling light of Martha's art room, we find a piece of paper detailing Dory's training schedule. Walter, reflecting on it, wishes his daughter had more time to be just a kid. But then we discover something more disturbing, a blood altar in the center of the room, with an eye that opens to stare back at us. Creaking sounds and a heartbeat echo through the room as we are tasked with finding 3 objects in an alternate version of the room to place on this altar. We access this reverse room by stepping into a mirror upstairs, but in this ominous crimson mirror dimension, we're hunted by a demonic version of Martha. If she catches us, it's game over. And when she does grab us, Walter wakes up back in his room, dismissing it as a bad dream. After taking more pills, we head for the door only to be thrusted back into Martha's art room through an opening in the wall. A subtle checkpoint system. A worried Walter steps back into the mirror world, dodging the demonic Martha as real eyes blink and watch her every move. We manage to grab the necessary artifacts, a paintbrush covered in eyes, Martha's ear with an earring still attached, and, after a tense struggle, her tarot cards. Placing these items on the altar, we hear auditory flashbacks of conversations between Walter and Martha revealing their troubled relationship. Walter didn't want Dory working in the circus so much, but Martha was cold and dismissive, insisting that Dory's future was in the circus. As Walter tries to piece together these memories, a creaking, chittering sound comes from upstairs. Heading on up, as we approach the mirror, the horrific version of Martha, now outside her mirror realm, pops up behind us to annihilate us. Waking up in the same loop yet again, we leave the bedroom heading into the living room, and the mechanical whirring is back. Things have been rearranged again. We see a red painting with a single black figure. The atmosphere has grown darker, and the record player has resumed its eerie song. Heading downstairs, we notice that the wall that had previously opened up is now closed off again, but with visible scratch marks, as if the wall has slid open and shut multiple times. Walter begins to question his sanity. His house doesn't make sense anymore. A door that was previously locked is now open, revealing a hallway with more scratch marks on the walls. Opening the door leads us ahead to a kitchen that Walter doesn't recognize. He says that it shouldn't be here. Everything in this game feels both familiar and unfamiliar at the same time. Walter remembers liking a pizza place, but can't quite place ever going there. He remarks that the kitchen can't be theirs because he always did the dishes.
I always did the dishes. This can't be our kitchen.
After taking in the eerie evidence of a life lived, we head upstairs to, of all places, the garage. Upstairs. The garage is dimly lit and cluttered, bathed in purple and blue hues with neon lights casting ominous shadows. It's a dreamlike but almost nightmarish space. Walter's workshop is prominently displayed, cluttered with tools and notes. A close examination reveals a notebook filled with cryptic symbols and a photograph, clues to help us on our path. We need to find all the mannequin parts, assemble the mannequin, and then decode the symbols in the book and set the mannequin to a very specific position to find the symbols we need to unlock a chest. Now, you already know I am not a fan of puzzles, and after about 40 minutes of struggling, we finally open the chest to find a prop sword. Hidden inside the hilt of the prop sword is a contract, a legally binding agreement signed by Dory's parents condemning her to work for the circus for 7 years. Walter is astounded, disbelieving that Martha would go this far. He's worried that forcing Dory to work in the circus will ruin her childhood. As we turn around, we find ourselves on a train. Most likely the very one the circus used to travel between cities. Circus paraphernalia is scattered everywhere, including the elephant from earlier and even compartments for members of the circus to sleep in. One of these compartments has our names on it, and as we enter, Walter reflects on his time traveling with Martha and Dory, lamenting how often he spent too much time working and not enough time with his family. And you can't help but feel sorry for him, right? Those lost moments, those regrets, they really hit home. Like, for me, I spend a lot of time doing YouTube and making content, and oftentimes I think, hey, maybe I should go spend some time with my wife. Walter shares how the circus eventually stopped traveling because people began leaving. That's when he and Martha bought a house that they couldn't afford, and the money issues began piling up. Outside, a train whistles by, and the moonlight shines brightly as our train chugs along, flying past the trees. As we move through the lounge, Walter reminisces about the times they had traveling with the circus, and he admits that he misses it, but then he reminds himself, confusedly, that he still works for the circus, he thinks. This level of uncertainty casts doubt over everything. What's real? What's not? So far, we haven't seen anything concrete to prove his past life, just items, locations, and murky memories that don't quite add up. We enter the next car, only to find ourselves stuck in a loop, back at the start of the train, but darker now, and with a mannequin coming alive to attack us. The first time, the mannequin gets me. The second time, we rush into the opposite direction trying to escape, but the mannequin is relentless, moving very quickly, opening doors and chasing us down. We manage to block one of the doors from the inside using a desk, buying us some time to find a lever to decouple the wagon. As we do, the mannequin breaks in, but we make it back to the decoupler in time, detaching the wagon and sending the mannequin crashing onto the tracks, smashing into pieces. The tension here is real, and you can almost feel your heart racing along with Walter's. Deeper into the train, we hear remnants of a past conversation with Martha, one that tells the story of how Walter tried to stop Martha from forcing Dory to perform in the circus, but Martha was cold and determined, telling Walter that she didn't care what he said, that she and Dory would go on without him, that they didn't need him.
I don't care what you think. You can leave. We don't need you. She doesn't need you.
It's a chilling reminder of the fractured relationships that are at the heart of this story. Then the train takes on an eerie green hue, and we start to see graffiti on the windows and walls of the inside of the train, and it doesn't really make sense because it doesn't fit the vibe and the atmosphere of most of what we've been seeing so far. It just seems out of place and contradictory. It's bizarre, even for a story that's already pretty out there. But I digress. Walter, remembering the events through flashbacks, sets his mind on saving Dory from a life of servitude to the circus at the behest of her mother. Exiting the train and crossing floating platforms bathed in a bright green light, we enter the engine room. Suddenly, the engine roars to life and begins to overheat. It's about to explode unless we can turn all the valves in time to release the pressure. I'm not sure if I failed or if the game was designed this way, but the engine explodes right in front of us. Talk about a heart-pounding moment. Once again, we wake up in that crimson red apartment, but this time the objects that once floated around us have started to settle. We step outside onto Penrose Street where a muted, distorted sound resonates as we walk past familiar shops. The graffiti on the walls is the same as we saw on the train. I also wander into a small Chinese restaurant to check out the menu, but decide against eating. I'm not really feeling it right now, so I head to the laundromat instead, where I find a few arcade games in the back. Taking the nearby exit, we find ourselves in an empty alleyway. As I turn the corner, the telephone booth from earlier suddenly appears. Inside the booth, a sign on the phone instructs us to look behind you. So, I do what any normal gamer would do, and I slowly turn around. Nothing pops up, but the alley is gone, replaced by a hallway with eyes painted on the walls and a metal door at the end. The door opens up, blinding us with light. The suspense here is thick, almost suffocating. And then, Walter wakes up to the sound of rain pouring down. Opening our eyes, we see the night sky and feel the water falling on us. Confused, wondering what happened to the train, we realize we're back on the outskirts of the circus. Remembering his mission to save Dory, Walter rushes over to the big tent to find Martha, who's performing tonight. We get a flashback learning that Martha isn't performing with Dory because she's sick at home, since Walter had taken her to the lake earlier.
Dory is sick at home. I think today's the only chance.
Martha is going to be there alone, and Walter knows this is his only chance to do something, anything to save his daughter. With the main road blocked off, we have to enter through a side building, and here, more mannequins decide to pop up and try to scare us. We make our way past the House of Terror, a ride we remember from the intro to the game, and up to the big tent where Martha is practicing her walk on the tightrope with a safety net underneath. Remembering our mission, we head to the back where the rigging is, find bolt cutters, and start cutting through the ropes holding up the safety net. While he's cutting, Walter begins to question himself. Why is he doing this? But he continues, convinced that he won't let Martha take Dory away. It's palpable. You can feel Walter's desperation and confusion. In a horrifying twist, he looks up and sees his daughter on the tightrope too. Confused and terrified, he watches helplessly as both his wife and daughter fall to their deaths because of him.
Stop. Why am I doing this? That's the safety net.
No! I won't let you take my child away!
Dory?
No!
The screen fades to black, followed by a sickening thud, and Walter's sobs fill the void. We awaken in a dark forest, the realization of what we've done coming to crash down on us. Walter races through his thoughts, trying to understand why he did that. Finding a flashlight, we see an altar and realize we need to find 3 items in this terrifying forest to place on it. Just then, a piercing screech echoes through the trees, and we spot something big and red lurking in the distance.
Something has to be put in there. Oh God, what was that?
The fear here is real. Every shadow, every sound keeps us on edge. It reminds me of that game I played, Silent Breath, the one that uses your mic to listen to you. Pretty much right at the start, the demon does get us, and I think it kind of looks like my wife, or some other monstrous version of my wife again. Navigating the forest is no easy task. The demon seems to always know where we are, and it charges at us even when we try to avoid it. We eventually come across a gas station that Walter seems to recognize. He worked there, but his alcoholism got him fired. Inside, we find a red orb with a cube-shaped puzzle inside. The demon is still stomping around outside, and as I try to quietly evade it, it catches me, and I wake up back near the altar. Luckily, the red orb still with us. We place said orb on the altar and set out to find the next 2. At this point, the demon appears to malfunction. It's running around in circles, stomping around, glitching through walls. I managed to creep up to a circus tent to find the next orb with a watch inside. Leaving the tent, we find an office desk, and Walter remarks that he wasn't cut out for that kind of job, reaching for a flask and saying that he could really use a drink right now. In the distance, we see a light emanating from a rocky wall. It's Dory's room. Inside, we find the third orb with a necklace and a heartbreaking letter from our daughter. With the demons still lurking, I decide to let it catch me and reset, knowing I'll still have the items. Placing the 3 orbs on the altar summons something from beneath the lake. The House of Terror, the ride from the circus, erupts from the water. Walter calls it the ghost train, and with a sense of dread, we step inside and let it take us on a ride. The ride takes us through familiar scenes, items, places, and moments we've encountered so far. It's all reminiscent of the very beginning of the game, and now it starts to click. The show sets we see are reflections of Walter's life, his work, meeting Martha, getting married, having Dory, watching her grow and join the circus, and ultimately being forced to choose between his wife and daughter. As the ride ends, we're jolted away by a blaring alarm. We're back in the house, and outside our window, a red light is flashing. Walter wonders if he's finally awake as we hear mechanical whirring through the walls. We leave the bedroom to inspect the situation. One of the doors that was locked before is now open, but it leads nowhere. In the hall, a bright red alarm light rotates next to a camera. We're definitely being watched. The house is even more disorienting now. Expecting to turn around and see the living room, we find ourselves in the kitchen instead. Light shines through the window here, absent of the flashing red lights and alarms. Rotten food and trash are covering the kitchen, and the word "remember" is smeared on the whiteboard. Opening the door to the next room, we're back in the living room, but everything is rearranged again. Boxes with that triangle symbol that we've been seeing throughout the game are scattered on the floor. Heading downstairs, the wall opens up again, but as we approach, a ringing sounds off and the wall closes in front of us. As it moves, the mechanical whirring grows louder. Downstairs, we hear a banging sound, and through the door, we see a room struggling to lock into place, moving back and forth. It's at this point that I think we're being messed with, like we're inside some sort of structure where rooms can be shifted around, like in that thriller movie, Cube. We walk into Dory's room, but the wall on the right is gone. Instead, we see what looks like a production room filled with props we've seen throughout our journey. Walter wonders,
Who built this? And why?
We find ourselves back at the circus, where we discover a giant red button with an eye on it. Pressing it causes 2 dummies to fall from the ceiling, just like we saw Martha and Dory fall. In Martha's art room, the lights switch from bright to a menacing red. We see the mirror we once used to enter the other side, but now it's replaced with a door. Opening it reveals a hallway filled with gears and mechanical parts. We're inside a giant machine, and our suspicions are confirmed as more walls close in front of us. Entire rooms are shifting before our eyes. The door ahead leads us back into the neon workshop, which then leads into the train. Everything is progressive, chronologically ordered, and in place as we experienced it before, like a story or a movie script that was already written for us to follow. Noticing a tear in the wall, Walter has a flashback, questioning if he was the one who wrecked an opening into the wall during a moment of madness. Exiting through the hole, we find ourselves outside the house, where we finally see the full scale of this monstrous machine. Rooms are being moved around and placed into different positions, and a nearby desk confirms our worst fears. We've been watched this whole time. Can you imagine realizing you've been a pawn in someone else's twisted game? A computer close by gives us our first real clue into cracking this mystery. There's also an empty holster on the seat. The computer has monitors for inside the house, as well as controls to move the rooms around. We see something called Subject 7 and an error on the screen. Using the computer, we unlock the doors and head out. Walter begins to think that he is Subject 7 and wonders why is he there. As we move through the halls, we see blood smeared across the floors and walls. We hear a flashback of a woman asking what we're doing out of the house, followed by a gunshot. Entering a room filled with boxes marked with the triangle logo, we find ourselves in what appears to be a storage area for food and other supplies. The next room over is a workshop for props we've seen throughout our experience. As we progress, we see the giant triangle logo again, and walking through the doors, things start to make sense. We're in some sort of facility owned by a corporation running an experiment. There's a front desk for registration and TV monitors that display the words Norn Corporation, Memories for the Future. The Norn logo is the same triangular symbol that we've been seeing throughout the game. At the registration desk, we find a calendar that places us in 2017, but earlier in the game, items like letters from Dory's school and circus tickets suggested we were in the 1980s. We hop on the computer to unlock a door to the back rooms where we find more bodies and hear flashbacks of workers before gunshots rang out. The office is filled with filing cabinets and archives dating from 1999 to 2018, and files labeled Story Material Subjects going all the way to Subject 59. Another cabinet is marked Imprinting Immersion Prototype, hinting at the experiments taking place here. Whiteboards are covered with pictures of people labeled New Subjects. On the computer, we find an email with a scouting report on Subject 7, a man named Liam Kennelly. It contains his entire history, an assessment, and a conclusion marking him as an ideal candidate for a memory replacement experiment. Walter, or rather Liam, freaks out as he realizes who he really is. The horror of it is palpable. Imagine suddenly discovering that your entire life has been a lie, a fabrication. Snooping around, we find more files and other potential subjects, along with a monitoring report detailing the observations for Cycle 85. The report mentions how the experiment has had a detrimental effect on most subjects, even causing one to die. The report also recommends terminating our cycle early, as we've shown signs of resisting the implanted memories. This is insane. We have been dying and waking up and dying again in an infinite loop because of this corporation. They've been trying to imprint new memories on us, but somehow we've been resisting. Now, at some point, we were able to escape the house, come out here into the facility, and effectively end everybody's career here, but somehow we ended up back inside the house. The next office leads us to the server room where Norn was storing data. Further back, we see security monitors for other subjects and their houses. We're the only subjects left alive. On a nearby computer, we find more logs detailing observations about Liam, how the memory stage rooms are having a desired effect, and how a breakthrough occurred during the bathroom stage. The logs also mention that Liam was unseen for about 2 minutes while in Martha's room. Other reports indicate that the experiment has had detrimental effects on other subjects, with even some dying. Unlocking the final door, we enter a room with 4 tables, each holding miniature props. We are in a storyboard room, where Norn writers meticulously crafted stories to implant into their subjects. Every detail of Walter's, or rather Liam's, life was engineered to make us believe that we had that history. From the year, to our wife and daughter, to their origins, everything was tailored to make us think and feel very specific things. It was all a beautifully horrific lie, named Death in the Circus. And what's crazy is, on the other desks, we see entire props and other stories handcrafted for other subjects. It's insane. In the back of the room, we see designs for discs that store memories, part of the process used to implant memories into us. There's also a sickening sketch of Dory, with a note from Dr. Brian Emerson about how visual stimuli would help with the immersion factor. The discs, the restructuring of houses, the props, and the show sets, all combined with medications, were designed to ensure that we accepted and became the imprinted memories. But why? What's the point of making people believe in memories they never had? The answer might lie in money, science, or even something more sinister. As we continue to explore, we find more emails detailing further observations. One email from a Dr. Ian Keller urging for outside testing to prove the experiment's effectiveness, stability, and long-term viability to secure further funding. Another email requests modifications specifically to Liam's memories suggesting changing his wife's origins, her background, to better fit the time period, making the story seem more familiar. He basically asked them to make Martha Chinese. With this context in mind, we realize that the memory disks keep running on cycles, feeding us new memories while suppressing our old ones. But what were our old memories? Who are we really? Who is Liam? The question haunts us as we continue to uncover the truth. We head into a restricted area in the back, and Liam seems to recognize this hallway with the prison-like metal doors. The alarms are blaring, and there are bodies on the floor. Entering one of the rooms, we're hit with a severe headache and fade to black.
Oh, my head, oh.
When we wake up, we're not in our house. We're in the apartment that we've kept seeing. A landlord bangs on the door, demanding rent.
Kennedy, your rent is late again. You don't pay up till the end of the week. You better have your things already packed up. Last chance.
Yeah, I'm trying.
When Liam speaks, his voice is noticeably different, deeper, different speech mannerisms. It's eerie, realizing we've been someone else all along.
I'm not sure how long I'll stay here. I don't need most of it anyway.
Looking around the apartment, it's almost familiar by now. Minus the ruby-toned lighting and muted, distorted sounds, this is our real apartment from before. On the table is a box with the Norn insignia and a red letter enticing us to find them with the promise of $1,000. Searching through the trash-filled apartment, we find a letter giving us more insight into who he was. He had his car repossessed. This was a guy who has definitely seen better days. His girlfriend left him, he's got no prospects, no career outlook, and was discharged from the military because of his lack of ability to conform to the military regulations and standards. Liam remarks that he's broke, so I turn off the lights to save him some money. Returning to the table, we check out the puzzle that was inside the Norn package. Judging by the Sudoku and puzzle pieces on the table, as well as the completed Rubik's Cube on the counter and on his bed, Liam has a knack for puzzles. I don't, so this puzzle tortures me for several minutes. However, after solving it, a piece of paper pops out, saying it's ringing. Penrose Street 18. Naturally, we head outside to find the ringing. Everything is familiar, as we've come to the realization that this street is where we used to live. All those nightmarish dreams that we've had were our repressed memories fighting to come out. We walk past the electronics store, the mannequin, the graffiti. Liam thinks this is a scam, but for someone who's desperate, he's willing to buy hope. We visit the Chinese restaurant from the dream and the laundromat with the arcade in the back. And the developers for this game, Pixel Split, even put a subtle ad for another one of their games in this laundromat room. Walking into the back alleyway, we hear the ringing and notice a mannequin standing next to the phone booth before entering it. We need to dial something, but of course another puzzle is involved. The mannequin outside taps the phone booth, which doesn't make any sense, considering we're not in a dream or a simulation right now, I think. But we solve the puzzle and dial the number anyway. A secret door opens, and the first thing we see is familiar graffiti from Walter's memories. With pounding techno music thumping in the background, it feels like we're about to enter a club. Moving on, we see a camera on the way to the elevator that takes us down, just like before. We pass prison cells, and Liam even jokes about being locked up. The Norn symbol is at the end of the hallway, leading us to the entrance of the club, which is eerily empty, save for the creepy cutouts of people with giant red eyes. Why would Norn make this so unsettling? It doesn't make any sense. If they wanted to lure people in, why get creepy at the entrance with them? After pushing through the crowd of cutouts, we find a giant metal door, and guess what's behind it? The entrance to the Norn facility. A robotic voice kindly encourages us to enter Chamber 3, and of course, we do, despite it looking like a prison cell.
Welcome to Norn. Please enter Chamber 3.
Inside, the walls are soundproof and there are speakers embedded in them. On the desk is another puzzle for us. One last test, it says. As we push the red button, sound waves begin emanating from the speakers, causing us to faint and black out.
Oh, what the fuck is this? Oh!
Remembering what happened, Liam finally confirms who he is, what's real and what's not.
My name really is Liam Kennelly.
We head back inside the facility, walking past the locked doors with people banging and pleading to be let out. But I move on, since it's too much of a puzzle to figure out how to free them. As we progress, someone had moved the stretchers, opening up a new path, closing off where we came from. I thought we killed everybody. Determined to get to the bottom of this, we find a control room, but of course, the power is out, so I need to find out how to restore it. During my mini quest, I find papers explaining how the experiment produced unique results in Liam. His memories stuck with him more than other subjects, and for longer. The side effects of the implanted memories didn't hit him as hard, making him incredibly valuable. Because Liam was an outlier in the project, they decided it was okay to test the most unstable and dangerous memories on him. After managing to find the generator, replacing the power cell, and rebooting the system, we see a menacing machine in the middle of the room and the exit nearby. On a desk near the exit, we find a piece of paper detailing the causes of death for the last subjects. Brain hemorrhaging caused by their old memories trying to resurface. When the old memories tried to reclaim their place, it eventually killed the subjects. This explains why we kept seeing things that were out of place and why we experienced headaches and blackouts. Whenever the side effects of resurfacing memories appeared, the proctors were asked to end the simulation and restart the cycle after re-imprinting the new memories. Taking the security card on the desk, we realized that if we leave the facility without restoring our old memories, if we continue to leave our memories fractured and clashing with each other, we're going to die, as our old memories and new memories continue fighting each other. So, we decided to take back our original memories using the machine. Looking through emails, we see that the Norn Corporation is the first in the world to achieve the alteration of human memories with desired data, and Dr. Keller is eager to change the medical landscape. He believes this technology could treat most neurocognitive disorders and be used for therapy. We also find a newsletter mentioning a senator who was cured of early onset Alzheimer's and a rare form of dementia, thanks to a neurological treatment. Was this Norn's doing? Back at the computer, we set up the disk with our old memories, although we're given the option to install the new memories if we want. Liam seems to entertain this idea, if it means he could trick himself into thinking that he had a family. I'll show that ending right after this. After struggling with a few more small puzzles, which, again, I hate, we set up the machine to end the nightmare. Bright lights circle around us, flashes flicker in our eyes, and we end up right back where we started, in what I theorize is the mental representation of our own mind. We walk towards this imposing house as the items representing our fake memories begin to burn away. We apologize to our wife and our daughter, who never were.
I'm so sorry, Martha and Dory. You may not be real, but I am. I'm not sure why, but I want my own life back.
Awakening, Liam notes how it feels weird that he can't remember the memories he just burned away, but he does remember how he John Wicked the entire facility. Honestly, you would think that this facility would have better security. Swiping the security clearance to make our way out, we finally exit the facility and see the sunrise. Liam hopes Norn will leave him alone, but given his exceptional performance in the experiment, they probably won't. In the bad ending, we do the same thing with the setup, but this time we chose to imprint the new memories, the ones with our wife and daughter in the circus. After stepping into the brainwashing machine, we end up back in our mind again, walking towards the imposing house. Our old memories from our real life burn away as Liam, wants nothing to do with his past. He wishes to believe that everything is okay, that he had happy memories of a family.
I just want one more moment where I think everything is fine.
Waking up back in our house, our head ringing, we take our happy pills, the same loop and cycle we've done countless times. We begin to look for our wife and daughter, when our wife actually finds us.
No!
Hey guys, thanks for sticking with me through this Story Explained video. This is my very first one, so let me know what you guys think. Maybe give me tips on how I can improve. If you enjoyed the content and want to see more of it, don't forget to like and subscribe.